Hey everyone, I thought I might quickly show you a quick tutorial in Cinema 4D and Photoshop on how to make this pretty neat text effect. So like I said, it's using a combination of both Cinema 4D by Maxon and Photoshop. Doesn't matter what version of Photoshop any should do, sorry. And yeah, it's just pretty much some basic lighting labs within Cinema 4D and some pretty basic effects as well in Photoshop. So we're going to quickly open up Cinema 4D. I've just recently started using this program for some of my works. I'm pretty new to it. I'm always kind of learning, but yeah, like I'll help you guys out and teach you some quick stuff. So I'm actually using a studio plugin that you can buy or purchase for this effect. You probably can find it somewhere on the net. And what it is, it's a so let's quickly grab it open. The content browser. It's from GreyScaleGorilla Like It Pro. You can purchase it online. I'll link you in the description for it. Again, you probably could find it online somewhere else as well. But it has some pretty neat studios that you can use. These are pre-built ones with lighting conditions already done. You've got backdrops. You've got everything. It's just quite a decent package, and I actually do recommend purchasing it. So we're quickly just going to make a new document. And we'll load up one of the studios. We're going to, so under the actual kit, so using the content browser on the kit, you go to studios, and we're going to be using the window light studio one. And this includes all your lights, and your lights you set up, your backdrop and everything like that. So as you can see here, we've got all that. You've got a camera, you've pretty much got everything set up already, and it's all pretty neat. So just quickly, just to preview what we're going to be seeing on a camera, we can go over here and click on this button over here to view the camera. We've got these actual balls that have come as a preset object within it. So we can see here in the Replace Me folder, we have these spheres, and they've got their own textures and actual materials already for them. We're going to be creating some quick text just for display, and we'll show you how to make some pretty neat effects from it as well. So going up to MoGraph, this is just an easy way of actually adding a text. We can do other ways, such as merging a file from Illustrator and putting an extrude in that, but this is just a really easy way to do it inside. So MoGraph, text object. On the text object, clicking on it, we want to go to the base object tab, and here we go, we can decide what the text is going to be done. For this example, I'll just use Design My Way, and we'll create the depth to say 100. Now, picking whatever your font you want, I'm just going to be using a font that I've used in other designs, which I think it's called Ethnocentric. We could find it online at duffont.com. I can link you to the website itself. I'm not too sure if I could find the font. And just quickly, we're going to be moving over some textures and some materials just before we can actually scale things and remove these actual spheres because we don't need them anymore. So on the Replace Me things, we've got these spheres and they've got the materials and the properties associated with them. So we're just going to quickly click on one, holding down Shift, click on the other so it selects all three, and simply just drag them up to our text object, thus now replacing the default material or the object around the text and putting it onto it. So now we actually don't need these spheres. I only really use them for a reference for the actual material which comes with it. So we can click on it, and just simply delete it like that. So as you can see, in our actual studio, in actual camera view, we've got the actual text here. Just quickly zoom out to we can see the full thing, and there you go, you can see it. We need to actually scale and now move this thing. So right now up here we have the scale tool selected, so we can simply roughly drag and scale down to appropriate size. And we'll move to our move tool, which is the arrows over here. We'll simply just drag it roughly in view. So that's pretty much what we have it already, and then you can render from here and do what have you. But I'm going to create a nice angle that I've used before, and simply we're going to be loading up into the different views. So we've got the actual camera view or the standard view that you can look around. You've got the top, right, and front. And now these views are good for editing different angles from where you can't see. I mainly like to use the top and maybe one of the right or the front. So we're going to be positioning our text further along here. So using the slider with the arrows tool selected in the text object, we're simply going to move this back into the stage, roughly over here. We may need to resize it later on. So now selecting the camera object, we're going to quickly move the camera in. We might actually draw the actual the view, the actual focal length, and the actual width of the actual aperture. What we see, we're going to move this around, possibly over here. I'm just going to kind of nice, and we're going to move it down so it's facing more direct. Now, using the rotate tool, we're going to quickly just rotate it so we can get the text further in view, and I actually might move the text a slightly bit over. So that, just move the text a bit over. And that's pretty much a basic setup already. We've just manipulated the actual camera and the actual text within the actual the canvas or your studio, just so we can get the right effect that we want. Now, let's quickly open up this again, Photoshop. As you can tell, the text is kind of just disorientated and kind of chaos, but it's kind of like flipping around and moving in different angles, and you can do this by hand by actually rotating each single letter and kind of having them uniquely done. But what I simply do is I use the MoGraph plugin and actually muck around with the rigid body. And what rigid body does is it simulates the dropping or rigid bodies within the actual thing, the actual studio's environment, and we can create that kind of dropped effect where it's kind of bursting out. So creating a rigid object on the text by right-clicking it and going down to MoGraph tags, rigid body. We then need to make a rigid body for the extra floor. So I think it's the studio, or maybe it's the room, I can't remember. We'll simply make one for both just to make sure. Rigid body for that, and the room we'll make a rigid body. So now the actual floor, studio, it will be the floor, and it will see that the text will be another rigid body, so they're going to collide and create this kind of this folding out effect where the text is actually scattering and kind of going to different angles. So to create that, we want to actually raise that text and give it some actual momentum and height so we can actually bounce off properly. So just quickly moving it up, we're going to create this drop for it, and then simply pressing play on a timeline. We can simulate a dropping, and we can pause and start the actual the timeline to get like further along the body. You actually can get it later on where it's completely done, and of course further the greater height, the greater the impact, the greater the actual text will actually be manipulated. So I actually quite like it when it's just kind of hit the floor and it's kind of bouncing around everywhere. So going back into our main camera view by clicking on this box over here, we can now see the simple design as is. I just quickly might zoom the camera out a tiny bit, like such, just so we can get more of the background in as well. I'm actually using my scroll wheel to do this, but you can manipulate it otherwise by putting the X and the Z of the camera back. Now we need to set up our document to be rendered properly. We're going to set this up as a single frame to be rendered, so clicking on the third camera reel or the snap shooter thing for rendering, this will bring up a rendering setting. So on general and our output, we're going to change it to a decent size. We're actually going to, I like using 1920 by 1200. That's a fairly big size, and it'll suit most monitors. It's actually this size is my monitor, so I quite use it for my backgrounds and what have you. Going to save, we want to put it in an appropriate place, so I'll just dump it in this folder. And we're going to save it as a TIFF, because it's like a raw file. We don't need it too big, it doesn't matter, it could be a JPEG, what have you, it doesn't really matter. We don't need alpha channel and stuff like that. Anti-aliasing, that can be all done best, and still image because that's what we're doing. Options, what have you. So, we found an error, and I've looked online for a fix. There seems to be an error with the global illumination auto-saving to a certain folder, and you can't render it properly. So under the global illumination tab, we want to go to the iridescent catch file and simply untick autosave. So now we can properly render. So just making sure the settings are right. Size, we're doing the current frame, which happens to be on 22, so we can get the effect of the text kind of flipping around. Just before we render it, I've quickly got to add some extra effects. We'll go back to the Photoshop and I'll show you the actual, it's kind of like a bevel, or kind of a cap as it's called, around the actual text itself, and we're going to be simply adding that. So whoops, back into the program. We're going to be going on text object itself, and we're simply going to be going to the caps selection over here. Now on the caps, we want to put a fillet cap on both the end and the start, and we'll put the steps in for 4, for 2, 4, and 2. Make sure this is convex, so it kind of gives it a slight curve to it, without being a flat kind of linear one. So now we're simply going to render this again.